So how do we? Do you have any insights into what do we do about that here? Are we investing in the wrong types of companies, or are we too diverse here versus the valley of mass?
It's interesting that you mentioned the diversity of the kinds of acquirers that are here, because that's it definitely looks like that. I mean, like when you're looking at like the big acquirers here, it's going to be the Lockheeds and the SAICs and all those kinds of guys, and we just don't have them. We don't have the Adobes and the RSAs and the VeriSigns and CA's up in Long Island. They kind of got something, but so it's like maybe the kinds of companies. I mean, the kinds of companies that I don't really know the kinds of companies that Dingman's investing in, but the kinds of companies that come through like Baltimore Angels, for example, I look at them as like I kind of wonder if those are the companies that can ideally make it here versus another ecosystem where they'll be rubbing up against other companies where they can get acquired. But maybe it's just volume.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And like that kind of like trickles down. So yeah, I mean, when those exits are happening, the money can be reinvested and into young companies. Like I've had a chance to kind of go around the room here and meet a lot of the folks here, and there's a lot of startups here, and it's really diverse. There's a lot of different types of companies. There's B2B, B2C, there's different industries, biotech. Yeah, there's not one thing that we're really known for in the region, and maybe that has something to do with it. And, but in meeting everybody here and kind of talking with you guys, what would you guys say is something that some advice that you would give to young companies that might be looking to raise, or what kind of companies are good for raising money and which ones aren't? Maybe it's better to do, like you said, get customers and maybe do it that way. I mean, what can we tell everybody that's starting up companies here?
Well, the advice I usually give, because I see all these companies through Tech Breakfast. So if you guys that come to Tech Breakfast is just an awesome monthly showcase of companies that come and just demo their stuff. It's demo format. It's 8 o'clock to 9:30. It's in Baltimore and it's in Columbia. I see all you guys at it, and Northern Virginia, and now expanding to Philadelphia. And there are a lot of companies, and some of them you're like, interesting. Not quite sure if they're gonna make it. Not quite sure I understand the business. Not quite sure I understand the business model. Not sure they understand the business model either. And then there's some that you're just like, yeah, this company they understand their market, right? And I think the insights for me is that the best presentations, the companies that feel like not only that they have momentum but actually have momentum, are the ones that understand their customer, they understand their market, they understand the problem that they are solving, they understand the value of the problem they're solving, they know how to get that value, they know extract the value from the customer, and they know how to scale. They know how to grow it from being small to being big. And that's kind of generic. I don't think that's particularly industry specific. It's like if you understand your market and you understand the way to reach your market, and you've really thought through like the how to get to your market efficiently and effectively, I think you can do great. Ironically, that really has nothing to do with raising money. It's sort of like, you could do that without raising money if you can. And my suggestion is, if you can, then don't.
Yeah, I take the NFL Combine approach. We watch NFL Combine. You're watching players that are all pretty close to each other, but then there's that one player. You're like, look at that dude. Look at that 40 time he just ran. Look at him move through the cones. Look at that vertical jump. And you're like, oh, okay, that's what I'm doing. I'm evaluating. Somebody is going to be that next Jerry South, that next Steve Bisciotti, who, as my roommate when Steve and I were roommates, he'd wake up, and he'd get his suit on in the third floor of our 3-bedroom townhouse, go downstairs in the basement in a suit, and start banging away at the phones. I mean, I'm looking for that Steve Bisciotti. I'm looking for that next Jerry South, that Kevin Plank. That's what I'm looking for out there. So, I mean, that's what I look for.
So, it seems that venture capital, angels, and it's all a relationship game. Who do you know to that angel that they like them, so they like you? What's your opinion on like AngelList and Gust and these programs that introduce entrepreneurs who may not be as connected into those sort of communities?
So this is really interesting. I had this conversation just the other day with someone at DC Tech Breakfast who is like trying to like raised this money, and they're stalking this person on Angel List, right? And they're like, this person, perfect for me. So I'm like, it is all about relationships, especially when you're at the early stage, because it's like they don't know. I mean, like nobody really knows your company's gonna be successful, but they can look at you and they're gonna size you up and be like, is this person a doofus, or is this person gonna really, can I work with this person? You know? So it's really about relationships. I'm like, well, think about it like dating, or think about it like especially if it's someone you really want. It's like, oh, this really attractive person you want to go after. Well, you can just walk up to him and say, will you marry me? It's like, not going to happen, right? So it's like, that's when you're asking for money, it's a commitment, right? So it's kind of like marriage. So it's like, well, what's the process? Like, what's the dating ritual? What's the courtship ritual? Do they have a lot of people that are suiting them? Do they have a lot of people that are going after them? Do they have some weird quirks? What are they really interested in? What are they really interested in as people? Not just in terms of their fun, but like, what do they really like to do? Do you have that same thing in common with them? Can you go to events where they're at? And more importantly, have they already invested in a portfolio company that's similar to you that you can be friends with? Because a recommendation from a portfolio company actually means a lot to an angel investor. Let's say they invest, especially if that company exited, and so it's like, oh, Jim from Kayak, because they were going after this company that invested in Kayak, and Kayak had a big exit, and they're like, we're just like Kayak. And they're like, are you really like Kayak? We're like, yeah, we're like Kayak for cars. So I kind of explaining a little bit about their business. I'm like, well then, go make friends with Kayak. Don't go to the investor, make friends with them, and then work them. Figure out, go to them and say, well, what did it take them to become an investor? And then be friends with them, and then have them make a recommendation. It's a process.
The girl's friend.
Yeah, right, exactly. know your potential mate's friends.
Right. It's a bricklaying approach. I tell people I'm a bricklayer. I build my relationship one brick at a time. I may come in, I may have one handshake. How you doing, Sam Medill? Good seeing you. Talk to you soon. And then the next time I'm laying a brick, I'm getting there before I get to ask for something, or I'm going to send an email, and then he didn't respond to my email. I get emails. I'm like, I got no time. I mean, but then if you're persistent with some style. Don't be persistent. You got to have some style. And I'm like, you know what? I like that.
See, I
like that Ryan Sears guy. I want to know what he's doing, and I'm interested now. So.
See, I married the girl of my dreams. That's why we're together, we're solid, and that's because I learned how to swing dance. So it's kind of like a little story there. I learned how to swing dance. We were dancing together. I made her my dance partner, and it's sort of like, cause seriously, how can you not fall for me?
What's the entrepreneurial equivalent of that?
And I got a side benefit. I know how to swing dance, which is like awesome.
That should be in your profile.
Yeah, it is.
I'm Scott Falkins. It's nice to meet you guys. My first time through. Where do you see the consumer products industry, startup and venture, in particular in the alcoholic beverage business or beverage business in this marketplace? Where do you see that? Or do you have experience in that?
Well,
because I make cocktails.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's like those type of businesses, and Lou knows I'm an investor in a cosmetic company here locally, Eco Armor. I'm an investor with Rob Benzinger. Rob's got a great shaving product. But those businesses, they're tough because you got muscle, you got shelf people they'll just, but that doesn't say, when I hear people say, well, maybe I can't get there because I can't get shelf space, then I keep thinking, well, I'm sure Kevin Plank said, Nike, I'm gonna have a t-shirt, I'm gonna make a t-shirt that wicks off sweat. So there's always a way to cut through there, but it's a long haul. You gotta be ready for that long haul. And the beauty of a lot of these companies have done really, really well is that they're young, they're out of college, they don't have kids going to school, kids going to private school. Like my guy Greg Merrill, who I reinvested in, he couldn't start Brain Century again without an angel investor. He can't go home and tell his wife,
we're making 20 grand this year.
That's it, we're making 20 grand. Would you like another ramen noodles dinner? That's not going to cut it. So, but you got to be in for the long haul, I guess, and keep fighting, keep trying to make relationships and try to get that shelf space, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. We're close to 8 o'clock, which is the end, but I want to respect everybody's time. Is there any other questions?
Ron, you mentioned the term shopping for someone to acquire you.
Okay.
Does that happen? I mean, is that does that logically make sense? And you mentioned that you go to meetups where you notice the Googles and whatnot. Does that mean, is
Well,
it a concerted
yeah.
effort?
Yeah, I mean, that's what business development, that's
Yeah.
one of the roles of your business development is to make sure, you make them your partners first, right? You find your potential acquirers and you find a way that you enhance their solution.
And there actually are companies that are specifically in the business to basically, matchmake between startup companies and potential acquirers, a whole bunch of M&A and investment banking firms. So clearly there's like a pipeline for that, and there are people that are constantly shopping. You're not going to get the best price that way. I can pretty much guarantee you that. I mean, it's courtship. It's the way I actually have like a little folder on my email called courting. And
Did yours happen by
yeah.
shopping, or did yours happen by asking?
Which one? The first one?
Okay, a little bit of both, yes.
Yeah, the first one was just the market was just ridiculous in 2000. It was just like an absolutely insane market. And I mean, remember, we had raised at that point, more than 4 rounds of money. We were like into Series D, so $60 million. Without going into the details, we had all these preferences, and it's like one of the, when you raise that much money, it's like the investors want their money out first, and you have to guarantee that through preferences and that preferred stock, and sometimes they'll have multiples on those preferences. And what that ends up doing, this is the double-edged sword of raising money, as I was saying, is that it ends up setting a lower bound. You can't sell for less than a certain amount of money because you guaranteed the investors a certain amount of money out. So now what you've done is by raising all this money, which is great, it got you to 250 employees and 3 companies, is now what you've done is you've eliminated like a whole field of people who could possibly buy you at maybe at a price that you'd be willing if you had only raised 1 round of money. So that's why I said like, slow down on the raising money. But the second, so we had to basically, when we were shopping, you had to basically find someone with pockets that are deep enough. And this is sort of like to answer a previous question of why there isn't a lot of exit activity here. It's like, well, when you're selling your company, you have to sell to someone who can afford to buy you, right? And there's only a couple of ways that they can have money to buy you. Either they have to be public companies that can raise money through that, or they have to, have private equity or other firms that have a mechanism by which they can either borrow money they're not going to pay for it out of their cash generally, unless they're really cash rich. And so there's not a lot of that.
They want your top line revenue because they can, when they push your top line revenue into their infrastructure, they can see synergies there and they can make it accretive. Or they want your intellectual property. They got to have your intellectual property, and they're not worried about your revenue. So companies that are trying to grow their business can acquire you on a number of either certain amount of times revenue, top line revenue, or a multiple of your EBITDA, or you've got some IP that they've got to have, and they don't care if you have a nickel in revenue, they need that IP. And
especially if you have good values, right?